In the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, and community. We pay our respects to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today.
Oh, hello. My mic was muted and I wasn't able to talk then. Welcome to Materialise, the Launch Tabletop podcast. I'm not even on the right part of my script, so naturally I'm getting things wrong. And this is a podcast where we talk about turning game ideas into tangible objects. Today is the 3rd of February, 2023, and this is episode 13. This week's topic is Protohype. Hi, so I'm your host, Eris, and with me is Kate, but we're not on the right video thing, so you can't see everyone. Here we go, there's everyone back. Kate, your mic is muted. Hello, how are you?
Hello, I'm well. I'm very glad it's Friday.
It is definitely Friday. Well, maybe not everywhere, because I think some parts of the world it's still Thursday, so poor
They
them.
should just catch up.
They should catch up. It would be helpful. And also with me is Alan. Hello, Alan.
Hi, Eris. How are you today?
I'm great, which is kind of a lie because I've been pretty stressed out. I had a lot of stuff going on, and I actually put my first order through Launch Lab last night, and so I've been like stressing about getting my game prototype correct. But I hear it's pretty hot up there where you and Kate are. Have you both been coping okay with the heat today?
Yeah, I live inside air conditioning, so I don't get to enjoy the hot air. So I'm all good.
Nice. And you're doing okay, Kate, with the heat as well? Forgot to ask you before.
Yeah, I've been inside most of the day. It's not pleasant outside, but I'm lucky in that I don't have to be there. We've already got Chris saying hello to us. Chris says,
Hi, Chris.
Hello.
Chris, I think all of us know Chris, so that's great. So with us today is Dan and Brenna, or Brenna and Dan. I don't know what your preferred order is, if it's alphabetical or just, whatever. Shortest to longest. And Dan and Brenna are 2/3, if I've got my facts correct, of Quillsilver Studio. Quillsilver Studio offers a complete solution to taking games from design to finished product. They offer design, development, graphics, art, marketing, and publishing services, so almost everything you could ever want for tabletop game creators, and have over 30 years combined industry experience. I've written Quicksilver in the script, which is obviously wrong because it's Quillsilver. Have partnered with Launch Tabletop to produce in the past this this creator notebook, which is a really interesting notebook that has game design tips, tricks, information, as well as some really cool randomization stuff on the thing. I'm doing a terrible job showing it. This was a version 1. I believe that a version 2 is being worked on, which has a different binding, and maybe I don't know if anything else was changed, but some stuff like that. So that will be coming out in the near future from us together. And I think, Quillsilver, you're also working on us with some as yet unannounced projects as well, which is pretty exciting.
Yep.
So welcome.
Welcome.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us.
I've totally gone off my script. I'm so terrible. So, Alan, just before we were about to record the podcast, you decided to ask a question that I think will unearth a lot of information about our guests. Did you want to ask it on the air?
Yeah, absolutely. So Brenna is our honorary Australian, I guess. But she's American by birth, not by choice. I don't know if you want to, if that makes but it's a very important question for all Australians. What is your thought on Vegemite?
Yeah, I take the question very seriously. So it's actually not my first exposure to Vegemite. When I was in music school, I actually had a lot of friends who were Australian. And you guys are like a pretty rascally bunch, I have to say. So they gave me Vegemite and they gave me like a massive spoonful of it. Yeah, just not how you're meant to eat it. So I thought it was disgusting for many, many years. And then I came down here and was introduced to the proper way to eat it. And now I love it. I love a little Vegemite on toast. I love Vegemite shapes.
Without butter. This is
with butter. With butter.
I'm a with butter person too. I actually had Vegemite for the first time in months a couple of days ago, and on some bagels I did it, and I was a little bit different in that I literally was putting whole big honking amounts of Vegemite on. I was like, I felt very Australian. I'm like, yeah, this is delicious. I don't care. Lots of butter, lots of Vegemite. Perfect.
So I have another one that I'm not sure if every Australian has tried before, but it's definitely something that I get a lot of non-Australian friends to do, which is Tim Tam straw.
Oh,
Tim
Tim
Tam
Tam Slam. Yeah.
Tim Tam Slam, yeah.
Mm.
So you've tried it before with hot
Tim Tam
coffee or
Slam.
yeah?
Yeah, I think it's the superior way to eat them.
Yeah.
Hi, Matthew.
Man, I love Tim Tam Slam.
Matthew.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Okay,
we attempt
well then
to
we'll try it again. Yeah.
Slam at one time.
Yeah.
I was mainly state high school music camp Tim Tam Slam champion 2 years running.
Really?
Is that like a speed
Nice.
thing or an amount?
No, I was the only one who didn't get it all over my face.
Okay.
Okay.
I was the one teacher who was game enough to get in there with the kids while they were.
Yeah, it's really a fine art of getting it at like the optimal
Just
level
the
of
right moment, otherwise.
molten before it explodes and dissolves.
Oh,
All right, we've got
people.
all these people. This is like our most active live audience for quite a while. So we've got we've had Chris comment, we've had Steve. Hi, Steve.
Steve. Steve's down with the Tim Tam Slam. That's awesome.
And Matthew. Hi, Matt.
Matthew, is Matthew back? Is he living here in Australia now?
I don't know if I'm allowed to say, but I can tell you that he has told me privately because I messaged him a few weeks ago and said, "Hey, you back in Australia?" And he said yes. So he's back in Australia.
Oh, okay.
But,
I'm sorry for outing you,
yeah.
Matthew.
I don't think it's a secret that much because I think he put it on Facebook. But yeah, it helps in the same time zone. Yeah, sorry, Matt posted this. It's totally makes a big difference. When I look at our streaming schedule, I think we're like 6 a.m. It currently is in London right now, and it's like 1 a.m. in New York, which is probably the time zone for your kind of hometown. I know you're not from New York, Brenna, but up that kind of way.
Yeah, no, I'm from the far superior Boston.
It does sound superior. I think if I was to move somewhere in the US, then definitely.
I have said like to my New York friends when I was living in when I was staying with a friend in New York to say that, all right, no offense, and it was huge offense taken, but I said between New York City and Massachusetts, I would prefer Boston. I would choose Boston over New York City, and they were not happy with
that. Makes me so happy to hear that.
I only know it from like, movies, TV shows and whatever. We went to the US when I was like 12, so like 1994, but we didn't go to New York City, but we drove up to is it called Buffalo, and then we went to like Niagara Falls. So we went up to there and that was lovely. But I would love to go to Massachusetts and go to Boston and that. I think it just looks so beautiful up there.
Well, anytime.
Boston chowder. That's the thing. Yeah. Wait, is Boston chowder the one that's the clam chowder? Is the called the fame? Yeah.
Yes.
Mm.
This is now we're just going to turn into a Simpsons reference like podcast. That's going to be the next phase of this thing. So before we get too derailed, I've got one more thing I wanted to raise. When I was putting together the thumbnail for this episode, I noticed that in Dan, May, and Brenna, Noonan, you have, I think it's 7 N's in your names.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you haven't capitalized on this somehow and kind of, been like the nth degree studio or something like that. That
pretty
could be
good. Yeah.
I was just like typing up and like,
really
there's a lot of N's in here.
Let's expand. That's going to be, You guys should start a band and call it the nth degree.
Ooh, nice.
Ooh, yeah, Dan. What kind of musical instrument would you do? Keyboard?
Guitar.
Guitar?
Yeah.
And then what would Brenna be? Vocals?
No, I don't think anybody would. No, Dan's quite a good singer, though.
Yeah, I can sing okay.
Yeah.
But Brenna's.
Oh no,
sad.
Dan, you know what that means, right? One day I'm going to have to put you on a spot and you're going to have to perform for us.
Yeah, well, let's go out to karaoke sometime. I'll do that. How's that?
All right, I'll bring my guitar too so we can have a jam.
Sweet.
Oh, hi, Nick.
Hey, Nick.
We've got a full house. Well, as full as we ever get. So,
Awesome.
Have we lost Eris?
it would seem like it. That's all right.
Okay, we've lost our host.
Fun time.
That's
We had a little bit of housekeeping that we wanted to do. So we'll just do that while Eris is hopefully coming back, flying by the seat of our pants. I've got a couple of little things that I just wanted to mention to people who are joining us. We are pushing some UI updates to Launch Lab on Monday. For people coming to us from the future, that's the 6th of February 2023. I'm sorry, but they're already there for you if you're joining us in the future. There's not really any functionality. It's all just UI. It's clearing things up and making them easy to use. I suppose there are a couple of little functionality updates, but they're not humongous, earth-shattering kind of stuff. So I might do a little, here's where the things are now video next week once they're actually there. The other thing was, we haven't discussed it much previously in a public forum, but we are launching a thing called Stellar, which is designed to help publishers get a better return on investment for all of the beautiful art that they commission that gets used in a game and then it kind of sits in an electronic drawer gathering electronic dust. It's beautiful prints. Eris had his promo size, so he can't show that because we lost him. I have one of the full size portrait ones. That can also be done landscape. Obviously, that would be a shame for this one. And Brenna's got one of the square ones. We did a sample for Dog Park.
Yeah.
So we're launching that as a thing soon. If you're a publisher who is interested in having facts about it, we will have a little package of info next week. Matthew says, what a great idea. We totally agree. We thought so too. So we did it. Well, we're doing it. The prospectus and little kit will be available from next week. If you're interested, send an email to, I will go and find it. Oh, golly, it's hiding now. Our support email address, support@launchtabletop.com, and we will give you some more information. There are a few little, stipulations and requirements around it, but they're pretty awesome prints. So,
Yeah, I can confirm.
still
So,
haven't seen Eris.
Matthew, just I'd love to get a print
Like that
Matthew's
one.
game. That'd be
Oh,
fantastic.
that would look so good. Yeah. That would be awesome.
Yeah. So I'm actually pushing to try and get a print on the wall. I'm doing a renovation, but there will be a very big wall that I can put all these games as prints. But Elysium is on the top of the list of the ones that I want.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find out where Aaron is. Oh, no, he's there. He's trying to reconnect to the stream. Okay, all right. Are you look, I can see him in text, so are you happy for me to continue? Do you want us to keep, treading water? We can do that.
Yeah, Matthew, totally staged. No, not staged. Yeah, I didn't know that Matthew was going to be on. Well, watching. So that's been on my shelf. Yeah, as my top game of that gets to sit on the Galax bookshelf. So.
All right. There was something that we were talking about just before, because Eris is trying to come back in, and he's done all the research for the interview, so he knows all the things he wants to talk about. While we were waiting before we came on, there was something we were talking about Eris was telling us he was watching Columbo and The Man from U.N.C.L.E. and how there were some slightly problematic things come up. And I thought Brenna said something that I totally agree with. And I was like, oh, it's so good to talk about that, during the show. And now we have this time because we lost Eris. Brenna, do you remember what you said?
I think I basically just said that I think when it comes to evaluating art, you kind of have to evaluate things in the context of the time, the areas that they were created in. And, obviously that's not to excuse problematic content or people, and at the end of the day, some people might just still not feel comfortable with it. And I do think there's like a line there, which hopefully we all can agree on. But for me personally, there's certainly things that I enjoy. Like I love like old films from like the 50s and stuff, and there's some stuff in there that like wouldn't really pass the litmus test today, but there's also a lot of other good stuff as well.
So how do you find art or literature or movies in this case that is the opposite, where the creator is the one that is problematic but the content is not? So a couple of examples. The most recent one is Justin Roiland with Rick and Morty, and I love Rick and Morty, and then that happened, and now I have to reevaluate the whole thing. J.K. Rowling is another one with Harry Potter. So how do you disassociate or decouple art and content and creators in this way? I mean, I was not expecting this to be such a heavy topic.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting topic, though. A big part of it for me is that person still living and profiting off of it. For example, I love Richard Wagner's music, the composer. He was also a horrible anti-Semite, but he's long dead. I'm not enriching him by listening to Gooder Damerung. So I have a little bit of an easier time with that, whereas somebody like J.K. Rowling, who is very much still living and profiting and actively contributing to issues for trans people, then I think that's a different situation.
I have a bit of a different view. I sort of think that the artwork itself is an expression that contains certain ideas, and once you sort of give birth to something and it's sort of out there, it sort of ceases to be your thing, I think, after that point, and it just sort of stands on its own. And people change, and someone may create something at a certain point of their life which has a certain expression, and then something may happen, and for better or worse they go down another path and create something else, and then that thing may be this thing may be something you don't want to regard highly, and this thing may be something which does have some merit to it.
So
I mean, I feel like as a creator, you create something, and things I created when I was 15 aren't the same as what I created now, so
Eris.
Yeah. So to bring it back to like board games.
Hello.
Sorry, Eris, I'll let you go.
Oh well, I'll just quickly say no, that's right. The issue with Harry Potter and Rowling is she's been consistently putting
connection is
Eris, we're having a hard time hearing you.
Statements to say, hey, my royalty checks are still blah blah blah, like so high. That's kind of tacit. Gone.
Oh, I think we're losing Eris again.
I think so.
Yep.
Sorry, Eris.
Sorry, Eris.
Trouble in Eris' bit of Sydney this afternoon.
Yeah, it could be. So I mean, bringing back to board games, I mean, is this the same philosophy that you take down with regards to creation? Is that generally when you create a game or a piece of art or a statement, you kind of bring it out to the world, and that has its sort of a life of its own. You generally don't have that sort of, you're okay with losing ownership of that part of it?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think naturally doing a lot of the work that we do as contractors, I mean, or working for a publisher, I mean, that tends to happen anyway. You put a lot of work into it and love into it, and then you move on to another project or another client, and other people become the custodians of that. I don't, like Brenna said, I mean, I think there's nuances to it, and some things, there's going to be different decisions around how you approach art as related to its creator. But I think there is that element to it where I do think it's a fair argument to say that a piece of art stands apart from its creator. I mean, who knows what influences went into creating that piece of art that may have been inspired by someone else entirely, and they were just a conduit to create this thing. you know, and it's the people that were inspiring it that are actually the people that are, you know, in that piece of art. And whether or not people benefit from something financially, I think that's like that's to me is a separate argument to whether or not the piece of art itself has merit, you know.
Yeah.
That's a separate sort of decision that you make about anything you purchase, I guess, as to how ethical you think it is.
Yeah, and I just saw Matthew's comment pop up on screen. And yeah, I think that's a great point, Matthew. I totally agree with that. You know, once you put something out into the world, you know, people are going to interpret it how they interpret it, and they're going to impose their own experiences on it for better or worse. And you kind of just have to be comfortable with that.
Because Aris is not here, I get to, I'm going to derail the conversation into really deep, probably tough topics, but this is why, you know, you need a moderator to actually make sure that things don't go sideways. But the other question I have is commercial endeavors, because like when you're talking about art, especially with like board games, and this is both for like visual arts, commercial art, or, you know, graphic design, commercial versus something that's more personal driven. How do you sort of feel where your responsibility lies with the creation that you make, given that there is a commercial component to it? Meaning that, is your responsibility really just to serve the game for entertainment, because that's the primary goal for any game, and that's where it sort of ends? Or do you feel like there's a certain amount of responsibility still on top of that when you do things like a social awareness or other aspects of art that you want to sort of instill, that has, like, how do you decouple the fact that this is a commercial endeavor, and how you want to sort of tie that in with with art creation?
Good question. Obviously, it's going to be a little bit different if you're doing it for a client, you're creating it yourself. You know, the degree of involvement that you have in it. Obviously, we assess games, you know, from a very raw point of view. If we don't agree philosophically with what the game's about, or we just think that commercially it's a bit of a cash grab or whatever, you know,
And
avoid them.
We have turned down games that deal with themes that we're not interested in, or we've turned down a lot of NFT related projects. You know, just things that like we're not morally or ethically okay with. You know, we just don't engage with.
I mean, I think artist responsibility is a huge thing. I mean, you can't always, you know, it's pretty hard to navigate and, you know, make sure that everything is perfect. And, you know, there's always doubts about, does this have an environmental impact or whatever? I mean, I think as an artist, you know, like I spent a good part of my 20s and 30s like stressing out about whether or not what I was doing was a positive or a negative for the world, and trying to sort of basically make things a net positive if you can.
Yeah.
And if it, you know, maybe there's some drawback somewhere, or, you know, it doesn't, you know, you don't see fully clearly, and you can't like see every avenue of, oh, maybe this part of the game is negative for someone, but overall you're trying to sort of create things which have a positive impact on the world, I think.
Yeah.
Because why not? I mean, you've got to be selective. I think if you're driven by money purely, then you're probably going to be making decisions where you're going to get a lot more negative effects, because you're just choosing things that make the most money, and therefore, whereas if you're creating things because you sort of love what you do and people enjoy it, and you're kind of motivated from that perspective, then you're probably a little bit more likely to stay on the right path. But it's a constant. You're constantly having to reassess it. I don't think anyone can go through and just sort of not be assessing that sort of stuff these days. And, you know, there's all sorts of different, you know, philosophical things we could get into, Alan, but Eris is back now, so I don't know if we want to continue this super deep conversation. Get started on that stuff.
Mark had a question. He said, do you think that if a board game is continuing to be supported, for example, with expansions, then there's more responsibility to take ownership and retrofit changes, etc.?
I personally do. I think a good example of that is actually in Everdell with the husband and wife cards, which, you know, at the time we put it out, it didn't really occur to us that those cards would, you know, be upsetting or hurtful or exclusionary to some people. And when we got feedback that they were, and, you know, I also just want to say very like gracious, kind feedback, which, you know, those people that spoke out didn't have to do, but they were very gracious and kind. You know, we voiced our opinion that, and we weren't with the publisher anymore, so it wasn't up to us. But like, you know, I came out on board Game Geek and I said, I agree. I think those cards should be changed. And eventually they were. So I think it's good that the publisher eventually saw through with that. So I do think if a game is still in circulation and being supported and actively being reprinted, and it comes out that like there's something problematic in there that it's in your power to change, then yeah, I think it should be.
Yeah, it's not like stone tablets and we're only making one stone tablet. We can change things.
Yeah, I mean, I like to say that, you know, maybe Mark's question can relate to a lot of, you know, things that come up with Kickstarters and, oh, you've updated to a second edition, but it's only a little bit different from the last one and it's only been 6 months. Or, you know, there's a new expansion out and I've got a first edition and it doesn't apply to the second. You know, people are going to talk a lot about what companies owe their players in general. And I think that's a very, you know, that's a very tricky thing that's going to think as a publisher, or, you know, you just want to do the absolute best you can, I think, with that. Again, I think it's very difficult to just sort of give blanket statements to any of these things once you get into the industry, you know, and you start to look at the costs and you start to look at the ramifications, you know, that again, I think most of what you can do is just do the best you can to try and be aware of what customers need and expect, you know, and what players and the community, sort of just be in touch and respect the community, I think, is the key. Just respect the players and the way that people, you know, consume games, and be aware of it, and then just, you know, try and make the best decisions you can.
When you know better, do better.
I think that's a good way to distill it down, Kate.
All right. Sorry, Eris, for derailing the podcast into really heavy topics.
Can you actually hear me is the question, though. Like, am I here?
Well, just then you were, but your video is frozen. And earlier when you were talking, everything was just very halting. So we kind of
turn my video off. Does that help?
It does.
It does, yes. Let's do that.
Yeah, it's really strange that,
wonderful.
like, out of all the episodes that we've done, this is the one episode that has caused issues. Yeah.
Oh, no worries.
Yeah, my whole house has lost internet, so I'm currently hotspotting from my phone, and it's not getting great reception. So fun times. I'm just more sad that I missed out on how we even got to this place, because it is a good conversation. Absolutely.
Well, it was inspired by something that Brenna said just before we started about. You were talking about, now I've forgotten, Columbo and the Man Uncle, and how there was some problematic stuff in there, but overall the shows were great. And Brenna made a really interesting comment that I sort of went, let's talk about that as a, you know, an interesting topic until you get back. And we just kind of followed that for a bit.
Fair enough.
And here we are.
Yeah. I think, because both Brenna and I were talking about it, and how I think it's all content that we consume, we have to, like, I think for me, there's a certain level of growth in myself in that I am more willing to take on content now that has problematic elements and try and process them than maybe a couple of years ago, especially like during COVID, when I was just like stressed out about everything. So I wanted stuff that I knew I could digest without having to, you know, be too concerned about necessarily trying to filter out all the messages. But I think it's it comes and goes. But then on the flip side, there's some content, like I've been watching the Velma cartoon series. Have any of you seen that? It's the new Scooby-Doo spin-off, like very, very adult, like MA plus like rating and stuff. But it's like super heavy-handed. It's not subtle at all with its kind of like messages, and their messages I agree with, but I'm a little bit like, gosh, could you be a bit more subtle? Like it's just like so smacking you on the head with its point of view. And so it's I think it kind of, there's multiple ways to look at it. But with the game thing, what Mark said and what you both all of you were talking about, I think there is also like a level of business sense to trying to be more inclusive, right? Include more people, and that helps your business, like usually like for most businesses and most products. And I mean, if you look at super mass market like games, usually they don't have like objectionable content in them, right? Like they're fairly neutral,
unless they
that
set out to push some buttons, and that's their entire reason for existing.
Yeah, I know. I think I know which one you're talking about. And the true, but even they've pivoted a few times and responded to the customer feedback and changed their decks and things to make it, address problems. So yeah. Anyway, I think what we need to do is actually maybe note this down for a future episode. And we have Dan and Brenna back on, and we talk about we intentionally make that the theme because we've promoted a totally different topic for this week. All right.
Maybe it's time for ad.
It would be a good time for ad. By the way, can I say it's so weird not having my video feed on and like knowing that no one can see my facial expressions. Anyway, life.
No
yeah. Let's roll the ad for the thing that we sell and stuff.
Here we go.
Launch Lab is our small batch print-on-demand service for tabletop games. Whether you want just 1 or 1,000, we have you covered. Select from our library of components to build your next game. We offer high-quality printing and components at a competitive price with fast production time, shipped to almost anywhere in the world. Go to launchtabletop.com to sign up for a free account and start prototyping now. Use the coupon code Materialise, that's MATERIALISE, at checkout to get 20% discount off your next order before shipping. All right, thank you for that, Mirror Universe Eris, who is from the past as well.
Who's the evil one?
Well, the version that recorded that, I think, may have had a beard, so let's say them. We'll call them the evil one. Because isn't that how it works in Star Trek? It's the mustache version is the evil one.
Yes,
normally,
the mustache version, and it's got to be twirly mustache.
All right. So did anyone ask any of the questions on the list that we've got in our run sheet at all?
No,
all right. I have no idea what's happening. This is like crazy.
But we did discover that Quillsilver has said no to some projects when they weren't there for that particular topic, which I think relates to a whole lot of the sorts of things we would have talked about anyway. So we kind of did.
And there's also like, aside from any kind of like ethical reasons to say no to projects, there's also that focus like stuff. Is like sometimes certain projects will take you away from the main focus of what your business is about or what your goals are, and so saying no to things can really help.
I'd say we say no to far more things than we say yes to.
Yeah. Contribute something to it, I think ultimately.
Oh, that's a nice little report.
Oh, nice.
Mark, thank you for telling to that, Mark. Matt is a wonderful designer who I know from Melbourne. He used to be regular at Incubator, and he has so many innovative concepts. Like every time I played his games, I was like, this is just, I would never think of this. It's amazing. So yeah, very cool to hear.
I think that was Rising Castles from the Rising Star competition last year.
Nice.
And TGD.
I like that game. Yeah.
Or it could have been the adventure one. The one about the backpack.
Okay. Inventory Quest.
Yeah. That's it. Thank you. Yes, Inventory Quest. Could have been that one because he put it. No, sorry, that was Andrew Carpenter. What am I saying? No, Matt Gleason's was Rising Castles.
I'm just going to try my camera on for a few seconds and see if it deteriorates. Let me know if you can't hear me.
Okay, so far so good. All right, let's keep rolling.
All right. So, Brenna, I'll ask you first. What excites you most about seeing a new game prototype?
Probably the potential in it. Like when we see a prototype that we're just kind of immediately attracted to, it's because we can see like where we think it could go and like where we think we could take it. So that's probably what I find the most interesting. It's like seeing the statue in the block of marble or something.
Yeah. That's a yeah. What about you?
I think for me it's similar to, just to kind of elaborate on that. I think you know, you want to see elements of it that genuinely excite you, that feel original. It doesn't have to be the whole thing. You know, it doesn't have to wow you on every level. I mean, the spark can be a very small part of the game, essentially, but it's something that you feel like if it's supported and if it's fleshed out, you know, you can make something really, really interesting with it. Like that could be kind of anything. That could be a mechanic, you know, that could be a theme, or it could be, you know, some other little twist on it, some part of the experience. And then I think it's being able to know that part of that beating heart of it's enough that, you know, if you do need to change the theme, or you do need to change something else, you know, that you can make it good. And also the other thing that can excite in some projects, just a good solid gameplay can be exciting too. If you just get a good system that's just like, this is a good system. It's not exciting, but we know that we can make it exciting through, let's add in a couple of other little mechanics, or let's add in some really good theming. That can be exciting as well. So sometimes it's the diamond in the rough, and sometimes it's just a really solid sort of platform for creativity, you know, good foundation.
What makes that good for you when you see it? It's like, well, it's not super exciting, but this is good. How do you know that?
It's going to depend on the specific element that's attractive. So if it was like a mechanic, I would say, you know, you're looking for something which you can sort of see the gameplay ramifications in the design space. So you can see that this has depth to it. How do you define depth in a mechanic? I'm not sure, but it's enough to sort of like maintain the interest over the course of a game, and potentially many games. So it's sort of a design. We use the word design space to describe it. It's like how rich is this vein mechanically? That could be part of it. Thematically, it could be that it's you know, it's unique, but it's also potentially quite broad. Like if you can find a theme that feels quite unique, but at the same time feels like it has this potential broad appeal. There's this sort of hard to put your finger on kind of quality that you can get to some games and some themes, or just general game ideas that are I don't know. For me, they tend to intersect. It tends to be things which have multiple things going for it. I'm not really sure exactly how to describe it, but it's never just like this thing is good. It's always these things intersect, and somehow this is all more than the sum of its parts. And if we do this other thing, it's going to be better.
So in the interest of driving a wedge between you and Brenna, Dan, you know,
in the risk of, or in the interest of.
So this is like couples therapy, right? This is what we're doing today. We're driving a wedge between the two. So when you have a game that's presented to both of you, and one of you loves it, the other one just really do not like it, who gets to say what, and how do you resolve that situation? Is it like just a truly, you know, you just talk it out and you figure out where you land? Or do you say, you know what, today's Tuesday, so Brenna, you get this one?
I feel like that situation hasn't happened.
Doesn't happen much. I will say one time, sometimes when it does happen is when I just I sort of like to challenge myself a little bit. So sometimes I'll get a prototype or something in, and I'll be like, there's something there. We can do something with this. And Brenna might be just like, no, it's not seeing it. And I'll push it and I'll push it. And I've kind of got enough awareness, I guess, when I know that there's been times when that's happened and I've got it over the hill and it's been something.
Yeah. And like, you know, we don't work on every part of the project together. Like I'm not really involved with like the illustration process, for example, to everyone's relief. So, you know, if it's a game where, you know, that's more the area you're involved in, then, you know, I don't really have to be hands-on with it. So it's fine. And like vice versa, if I have, you know, a game that I'm marketing that like you wouldn't otherwise be interested in, you know, like your involvement with it might be pretty limited.
Yeah,
so.
I guess that we sort of try to reserve the projects that we're both very passionate and involved in as ones that we are both genuinely passionate and involved in,
Yeah.
because it's just a limited amount of time, you know. So it's kind of, it's more of a process of elimination that, yeah, we tend, if we disagree, it's probably not a project that we end up working on. And if it is one that Brenna just genuinely isn't into, or I'm not into, then we'll just do it with different people. You know, kind of.
Fair
But
enough.
it's an interesting question, because because you know, even working with anyone when you're evaluating a game, where you're trying to work through a design, you know, and you're trying to decide what the best way to go is, you kind of got to learn to take the other people's personalities and tastes into account, and the way that people see things. So Brenna sees things pretty quickly. Like, she'll be very perceptively immediately with the game, and to be able to sort of see where it's going to go quickly. I'm sort of more, I can do that as well, but I'm more of a dreamer. So I'll sort of get visionary with it, and I'll sort of try and sort of see what it could be a little bit more. And just sort of knowing that, you know, sort of understanding the different kind of strengths, so that helps to sort of self-edit a bit, you know.
Yeah, because I've been told, you know, you don't really want to work professionally with your life partner. And, you know, in my case, you know, my wife and I have very different interests, and we have very separate professional lives, which is a good thing. I think that, you know, she'll probably stab me to death if I were to work together professionally. She's a pharmacist, and actually, I have worked in her pharmacy a couple of times to help out, and she almost killed me several times. I have accidentally sold someone a $89 product, and I sold it for $12 or something like that, and she nearly fired me on the spot. So.
Well, there hasn't been any stabbing yet, so.
This is actually interesting, because Kate, you get to work with your partner Joel on projects too, and
we've been working together since, well, I mean, full time together since 2006. And he's now in an office upstairs, which is very bizarre for me, because I'm used to being in the same room with him all the time.
And has it been good with sort of like? Do you enjoy working professionally with your other half?
Yeah, we're kind of similar, but we're also quite different. We bring different strengths to the table, so we're kind of complementary. You know, he's very analytical. He's a programmer. He's done lots of video game work, and so he's got this logical stuff. He can see what will happen if you do this, and whereas I'm not. I'm nothing like that. I'm totally illogical most of the time.
It's interesting, because I mean, Matthew Dunstan, also professional designer, he often works with a partner as well. So it's interesting to see how sort of solid.
I also grew up with parents who work together all the time. They've been research scientists their entire life. They've worked on, you know, huge scientific whatevers for different journals, and so that's just common to my experience anyway. I know it's not common actually, but I grew up seeing that, so it's not weird for me.
Sorry about the couples therapy segment, Eris. I'll hand this back to
regular
you.
Programming. Can't hear you. Where's your microphone? Anyway, we'll keep how many prototypes do you receive, say, a standard month?
Yeah. Do you mean like pitches?
Hello, I have a thing that I'd like you to make. This is it. Whether it's a physical box with cards in it, or, you know, here's my tabletop simulator.
Yeah, no, we don't get to that stage unless we've already decided to like work on the project. We'll usually first evaluate a game based on like the pitch and the rule book and like the creator themselves. And then like once we've decided we want to work on it, then we'll get a physical prototype and get into that process. How many we receive a month? Geez, I don't know. can really vary, to be honest. I feel like it's very, like most freelance work, it can be kind of like feast or famine sometimes, and it always seems like we get a big rush all at once and then it will be quiet for a while.
Yeah.
I'd say probably on average maybe about 20 or so a month.
Yeah, enough that it's like part of what we do.
Yeah,
it's part of our kind of constant discussion.
Yeah, I'd say I'm fielding requests almost every day. Yeah.
And
how much money would it take for you to take on a somewhat boring, uninteresting game, but man, the money's good? So what is the magic number there that is going to betray your artistic kind of
we couldn't do it. We're incapable of making a boring game.
Even for me?
But you're not incapable of making a boring game.
No, but if we took it on, it wouldn't be boring.
Because you saw the potential.
We would make it not boring.
Yeah, someone says, no, I want you to make this game, and then you say, no, it's really not interesting. It's $1 million. I can see the potential.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know. I don't think I could do it.
At some point, there's a question for you. At some point, like everything kind of has a price, right? Yeah.
So
well, the way I would frame it is that if someone gave you $1 million, you've got the resources and scope to make it interesting, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. I'd find it very hard to phone anything in.
It'd be tough.
Pride,
it would be tough to find something completely unsalvageable, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I think, and we have quite broad tastes, and we work on a lot of different projects, from heavy Euro stuff to kind of party games and very thematic things and role-playing games and stuff. So we've got pretty broad eclectic taste and interest, and pretty much all the projects we've ever worked on have been quite diverse and, in lots of different ways. So in that sense, like seeing, it's part of my problem sometimes is seeing the potential in things, in anything. And there's definitely been things that come across the desk, which I'm like, maybe I reckon we could do something with this. And that's where, Brenna would be more likely to say, but we've got this other thing which we know we both think is great, and then we'll go. Okay. And time is a great, eliminator.
Yes, and because we don't usually get budgets of $1 million, we have to make those comparisons of like, well, these two projects have similar budgets, but this one's a little bit closer to the finish line, or like, it's a clearer path forward with this one. Like this one, we might have to be in the woods for like 6 months just figuring out what it really is. And
we have a very broad kind of idea that we want to work towards doing things we enjoy doing, that we obviously need to make a living, but we have this kind of general philosophy of pick projects that ultimately we will enjoy, and therefore we'll get more work that's like that, So I think it'd be pretty, I really wouldn't want to do a job for a lot, I wouldn't want to go and work somewhere in an office or whatever for a lot of money. So I probably want to work on a very, very bad and shameful board game, for a lot of money.
Mark Rickards would like to get an update on Chihuahua. I have no idea what that is. From
is that Bad Boy?
You can have that name for free.
Is that, maybe that's the dragon game. That we were going to make it a Chihuahua game.
It was a Chihuahua originally. Now it's a dragon.
So I think maybe that's what Mark's talking about. It's like because we've started to try and design some games in-house and develop them. So that, along with a couple of other games that we're working on, they're just sort of ticking away. Honestly, like we've got a lot of client work on, and so it's always going to be a bit of a battle to. That's the one. Yeah. To progress those projects at the same time as doing our client stuff. So they're sort of the projects that, it's making progress. It's not as fast as we would want, but it's still there. We haven't abandoned it. So
there is a question that I have that I think is quite relevant to people watching here. We know that when we as designers, and we've designed games, we all have designed games in here. It's easy to kind of muster. Well, you've developed the game with Joel, who designed it. But okay, so
Not really.
It's easy to find a motivation when it's your own title, right? But in your case, you have to kind of wrestle with you as a freelancer. You're dealing with games that is not sort of originated from you. It's not. It's someone else's property. So how do you muster or find the motivation or interest to keep sort of doing this kind of work, as opposed to kind of your own personal projects? How do you balance that? And I think that that's a question that a lot of designers who might, are aspiring to say, well, yeah, I've got my own designs, but also I could take on other people's designs. Sort of what kind of advice you can give them?
You want to take that one?
Yeah, I think, well, the projects we do with clients, we do genuinely are inspired to work on. I don't think we take on projects that we are inspired to work on, and a lot of them we're very inspired to work on, and that that becomes a bit of a salve for not working on your own things. And it has been, I think I'm a little bit, I am kind of fairly motivated to kind of make people happy, clients happy, and so that direct working with other people on projects and being happy, hey, did you see this? And oh wow, this is a cool idea. And that immediate feedback of working with people on their projects kind of there is an emotional kind of benefit to that. And even though I do feel like our own projects could be really great, and I think that ultimately if we can get them on the table to an audience, that would be great. But I do feel like that when you've developed these good working relationships and you have this business where you get these opportunities come in of, oh wow, there's a cool new game that we've got that these people have come to us with, and we can work on this game together. It's very hard to resist that, rather than doing your own stuff. And especially when there's money and you're being paid to do it and it pays the bills, it's less risky, I guess. So it's a challenge, and it's something that we're constantly trying to, work through, and because we know that there's a lot of really cool stuff we can do, and we think people will like it. So it's sort of, edging our way forward with that stuff while still maintaining these sort of working relationships we have with clients. And
we're doing some designer matchmaking right here. So Matthew
Dunstan is up for some,
Yeah, sweet. Thanks, Matthew. Yeah, if you have anything to pitch, we're always available.
Yeah, or teaming up on things, I mean, that's a huge part, is sort of being able to team up with lots of designers on things and try to manage it through. I mean, that's what we've really, for most of the things that we've had in-house, we've been able to work with people to sort of nudge them forward.
So I think another thing that really helped, and Dan, you've actually touched on earlier before, but this, because I've known you for quite a while, and what I realize is that what's most exciting for you is the ability. It's not so much about like the origins of concepts or art or anything like that. It's that there's a certain idea that's been sort of put out there, and you're kind of looking at it from a certain perspective. You're seeing other people talking about it. When we have our chats, sometimes we don't generally have any particular game design specifically, but we may have some ideas that we kind of just want to discuss. So I think, bringing back to how someone could reframe their thinking about a client project versus your own project is, if you take your id or your ego, like ownership of that project out of it, and think about it in terms of like the things that excite you, or the things like you're contributing to a product or a thing. I think that when you take that ownership away, then you don't really have that, oh well, this one's mine and that one's yours, so therefore mine's, I want to sort of contribute, I want to put more energy into my thing versus their thing. I think it's all about sort of just being excited by
I guess it's like our own things I sort of regard almost equal to the other things we work on, and then it's just trying to sort of find time in our schedule to work on it. It's like that's the biggest challenge, and just trying to sort of team up with people and find different ways to navigate the creative space so that things can get made. Whether it's there's a company and they've got money to help to pay us to work on a game, or whether it's we can co-produce something with people, and a lot of a lot of the projects we do with clients are all different. Like we design a game for a royalty, and get paid a little bit to work on the graphic design, and then it's just trying to sort of find some sort of pathway through to sort of be able to work on good stuff and create good products, I guess.
Yeah, I'd say it's also because I think the clients that tend to approach us and the people that we tend to take on and be really excited to work with, they come to us for a reason. Like they're usually familiar with our work from other games, and they want to work with us specifically, which is really nice. So even though we may not own the product or be the designer or whatever, we can definitely still like put our own stamp on it because there's enough trust in that relationship that they want us to do that, basically. And those are definitely the projects that we're the most attracted to. Like we're a very small team. We're not like a content farm. So yeah, the projects that we take on are the ones that we feel like we can actually have an impact on.
How many projects do you tend to touch in the space of, say, a year, just because that's a nice finite length of time?
We did a calculation on this.
I think it was around 30 or so.
How many have we done total?
Over 100.
So we've done over 100 in 3 years, and they're going to range from quite big projects to relatively small projects. I mean, nothing super small because they get so small that it's not worth managing it. But yeah, probably around that. And as far as like full development type games and things like that, we've probably done full development, graphics, art direction. Sort of we probably do like 10 a year or something, 8 a year, something like that. Yeah.
What obviously that's a huge amount of experience. Do you ever sort of sit down and go, here's all the things that we've ever done pre and with Quillsilver, and just are totally bamboozled by the sheer quantity of projects?
Yeah, I did it a few months ago, actually. We were putting it together for something else, and we like totally lowballed the number of projects we had done. So what it was. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, I just feel like that's not quite right. So I sat down, I took like half an hour and actually counted out, and I was like, oh my God, it's over 100. Cool.
So what did you think it was before? You sort of went, oh, it's about...
We thought it was like 40.
You just forget the last game you worked on and you work on the next one, I think.
Yeah.
And I go into every game thinking, I've got to prove myself with this one. I've got to do this really well. Like, I think I literally forget.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
They've got a portfolio.
And also, like, there's some things that, not all three of us will touch. So, like, some things that, we'll forget. So, like, I have, like, a lot of marketing clients, for example, that, like, you probably wouldn't really think of. And, like, Greg might be doing, like, 3D sculpting for people. And, like, I'm not really involved with that. So, yeah, we really like it when all three of us can, like, unite on a project. That's definitely our preference. But we do have some things where we just specialize down a little bit.
Yeah. So I would imagine there have been a lot of learning experiences for you amongst all of those projects. What are some of the harder ones that you were like, okay, we didn't see that one coming? Hard lessons that you've learned.
I mean, I had a few pretty hard, like, print graphic design lessons early days, very early on, where I'd done some print work as a graphic designer before getting into tabletop, but then I think had a few, not many, I was pretty good, but a couple of nasty, proofing.
Oh, yeah.
Where I missed something in proofing and then it went out to, 5,000 copies or something.
Yep. Hey, that's
only 5,000. That's not
like
I've absolutely made worse mistakes.
There was a lot of projects, so it wasn't many. And once we learned, we sort of put different things in place to help it. I mean, and then I don't know, like mistakes. Yeah, I think like sometimes like looking back at game designs or developments, like because I started out doing art direction and illustration mostly, and then I kind of like worked my way into the development and design stuff. I think there was probably a few games in there that were like where they weren't mistakes. there weren't so much mistakes, but things you kind of learn in terms of just how to kind of calibrate a development, and how long, even just little things like this game should finish in 45 minutes, like something like War of Whispers, right? I was really proud of that game and what we did with the development. I thought it was a really good design originally, but then and it plays really well, but then after it, the audience sort of had this sort of sense of, this is a really good game, but I wish it went another half an hour. I just wish it had a little bit more to it. And even though it's sort of our design agenda, and it's sort of, some of it came down from management to sort of make it short, there's things like that where I feel like, it would have been kind of nice to push back against that and make the game like 15 minutes longer, because people just wanted a richer experience. So sometimes you sort of set yourself these sort of design limitations to try and, so you keep working to that vision. But, sometimes it's, I don't know, there's always like a little bit more kind of information you could probably get and make different decisions around that sort of stuff. So that all feeds into, like, when we assess games now, like how we having that experience, I guess we could, even though we're not consciously thinking of it, it must be there, because now sometimes we'll look at games and we'll like do a consultation on them or something, and it'll just be like, like, yeah, okay, this needs this, this needs that. And it just sort of comes kind of subconsciously, some of it, just having played so many games and stuff.
Yeah, I think that what you just said can also be a little bit of a struggle. It's easy to get a little bit jaded. Like, you see so many games and you play so many games that it's kind of easy to be like, okay, so it's another like action selection worker placement game. And, maybe like relying too much on your existing knowledge as opposed to like really meeting the game where it is and like seeing what it has to offer.
Yeah. I get bored really quickly with stuff too. And like because before we did board games, I played music, and I was into 3D animation. We did kids animation. There's all these different things that I've been into over my life, and I'm kind of acutely aware of, you just have to be passionate about what you do. And as soon as I start to feel myself like, oh, this is boring, I'm like, well, I can't do it if it's boring. So that's another part of how you kind of get inspired, is you just got to, if you can't find, a way to feel that it's cool or it's fun, and if you feel jaded, then it's pretty much a sign that you're not in the right business, pretty much. I think you've got to constantly maintain that that interest,
like excitement and curiosity, basically.
Break it if you have to, and then put it back together, like.
Do you feel like the landscape has changed much in the last, I don't know, say 3 or 4 years, in terms of what the people buying the game, what they expect to see in the box?
Yeah.
Experiences that they'll have?
Buying?
I mean, you've been in the industry longer than I have. I started in 2017, and I feel like even in that time, I feel like buyer attitudes have changed a lot. Like the expectations are much, much higher for what constitutes, a best-selling good game. Like the components have to be much better. The art has to be much better. Has to be more flexible in terms of like player count and time and different modes and stuff. Like, can you play it solo? Can you play PvP? Can you play co-op? Like, does it offer everything for everyone? I feel like that's gotten a lot more prevalent. Some of that I think is really good. Like, we're obviously like big into the aesthetics of games, so I love seeing what people are doing with art and components. With the flexibility, I'm like a little bit more iffy on that, because I think it leads some games into being pushed into directions that like they shouldn't really be pushed in, just based on like what that game wants to be, in the interest of making it broader. But there's advantages to it.
Is that the creator's responsibility, or do you think that the customers are customers in general is misguided with the way that they think about a product? I say this because we all think that we will buy this game and we're going to be playing 100 times.
Mhm.
But in reality, you play it twice, once maybe. I've got games that I haven't even opened yet, right? And that's not even a unique story to our industry. Everyone has that situation where you open a box of game, you play it once and you're done. So why is it then the customer's expectation is for this game to have 7 modes and this thing, and it needs to be high replayability X, Y, and Z, when the way that you engage with the content is you buy it and you play it once? So how much is that, because we're trying to, as creators, you're trying to cater to the voices to say, well, that's what the customers want.
Yeah.
But if the customers are not actually engaging with your content in that way, where do we sit on this and how do we manage it?
Yeah, I don't think, it's controversial, but I don't think customers always know exactly what they want. I think it's kind of the designers and the creators' responsibility to kind of understand what they really want or really need. I don't know, like
anticipate their needs.
Yeah, like when it comes to replayability, like you say, I think that you want to be thinking about like just genuine replayability. I don't know how to describe it, but you don't. I think there's it's like when someone buys a Kickstarter and they just see this huge thing with all these boxes and all this stuff and and all these parts and components. Sure, there's going to be some people that are going to wade through that, but like you say, 9 times out of 10 people are unrealistic. They're never going to paint all the minis that they think they're going to paint. They're never going to play every scenario in this game. Some people will, but there's going to be another game that's going to have scenarios in it and stuff. So I feel like as designers and creators and that, we just need to kind of realize that when we're creating a product, we've got to position it in a way where it's able to sort of take up a space that's not being taken up by other things. It's like, it's very hard in this market now because it's so saturated, but I also think it's very saturated with similar things, really. Yeah. I think there's a lot of design space and a lot of experiences that aren't really being created for. I think I tend to be a little bit more kind of an optimist about it, and people say the market's flooded, but I think it kind of gets flooded with similar things, really. And if you can find a point of difference in the product, then
it's still similar.
Create things that are going to stand out, I guess.
And the thing is that it's no different from like books or music or movies. Like there is millions and millions of them, around, and we still want new ones, that explore topics differently or touch on things that we already know, but modernize them or whatever it is. So I think there's still space. The thing that you're talking about, the player counts and stuff, I had an experience recently where I was pitching a game, and my game's a 3 to 6 player drafting game. And one of the publisher, representatives in the pitch said, can we do a 2-player mode? And I'm like, well, it's probably possible, but I don't think it's the right thing for this game, And so I think, and they're not thinking, like they're thinking just the marketability, like all that, they're thinking the business side. So it wasn't like a bad question, but it was just like, it is that tension point of like, what is good for the game, but also practical for
line.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we got time for one last question, maybe. What do we think?
Yeah, we do. One last from Alan, and that's it.
Yeah.
Oh, you want me to answer? You do realize that I answer like my questions are deep, and it takes like 30 minutes to
that's why I said one more from Alan, and then we'll be done. That's what I'm saying.
I don't know how to I don't know how to ask easy questions. What's your favorite cat?
Like cat breed or like cat that exists?
Cartoon or things in movies or lives over the back fence?
How terrible it is when you have to ask very easy questions. I don't even know where to start with that one. Let's just go to the questionnaire.
Sorry, that wasn't me. That wasn't me trying to hint. That was me accidentally pressing a button.
Garrus is like playing you off now.
That was the accident. I just realized that I didn't have the slide ready. All right, so we will do it. We'll move to the questionnaire. So I might we'll pop up the questions. Oh gosh, using my trackpad on my laptop, I am not used to it.
It's all right. I've got to do the questions.
Okay, so Dan and Brenna, this is our world famous Materialise questionnaire. It is incredibly important that you answer the questions honestly and openly, and understand
We will
that
judge you.
You'll be judged for these forevermore. So question 1 is, are you more of a heart, a diamond, a club, or a spade?
Wait, are they answered collectively or as individuals?
Let's go individuals, starting with Dan first for this question.
Okay. Well, I feel like I should say a heart because everyone kind of wants to be a heart, right?
No, we had some people who were like, club.
We've had all the. I think every single people have answered differently for everyone. Yeah. But you want to be a heart. That's fine. You're a hearty fellow.
That's the only thing that I have that's actually related to it, literally. I'm a heart with a body around it. I mean, this is a literal question, right?
It's totally.
It's the card thing.
I think I'm more of a diamond. yeah, I'm going with diamond. You know,
Indestructible.
Like sparkly, indestructible, under enormous pressure.
cut holes in glass windows.
Yeah. Diamond.
All right, second question. Dinosaurs who are pirates or robots who are ghosts?
Robots who are ghosts, for sure.
Yeah. I'd say robots are ghosts.
Yeah, like the ghost of an AI or something is like
there's
way
a lot
more interesting.
I think there's more to play with in the robots.
Yeah, dinosaurs who are pirates, it's like, it's funny. But robots who are ghosts is like existential.
Yeah, there's a lot of different kinds of robots and a lot of different kind of ghosts. There's, most dinosaurs are pretty similar, and you can do space.
We had, I think it was Tegan.
Apologies to anybody who's making a dinosaurs as pirates game.
I want to. I made this question, and ever since I made this question, I want a pirate dinosaur. No, but I think it was Tegan on a few weeks ago who, like, scientist background, and she was just like, I don't believe in ghosts, so we're not even gonna. That's not even an option. It was just like funny. I just love like the very kind of like no. Whereas like pirates and dinosaurs both existed, so that's more reasonable. All right, question 3. What's your favorite snack or drink when playing a tabletop game?
A good IPA.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
Yeah, just probably a coffee. Nice coffee.
Nice coffee.
Vino.
So you're not worried about like spilling things over the table?
Not really. We're not very precious with our board games.
Like, I don't sleeve anything. Like, I don't care if people like handle. Like, obviously, you don't want like somebody to spill a Coke on your game, but like. I don't know. I think like games are meant to be played, and like when I see a game with a lot of wear and tear, I'm like, oh, it's lovely. Like that game's been enjoyed a lot.
I sleeve decks, but just so they're easier to shuffle.
See, I don't like the feel of sleeves. I have like a weird tactile thing with them. So
I like the feeling of sleeves for prototypes because I know I can shuffle them by just like jamming them together, and they just like it can be really rough and it doesn't matter. But talking about well-loved games, so we have. It might even be down here somewhere, but we have a copy of Billionaire. Have you ever played this? Like a pit version? So it's like that game where you're all real time. You're shouting out like 2, 2, 2, 2, and you're trying to swap like sets of like groups. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So it's called Pit, originally called Billionaires. I know that later version, but there's a card in there called the Taxman that's just always bad. So anyone that's caught with the Taxman at the end is like negative. And on our version, the Taxman print is like worn away so much, so it's really obvious when someone's trying to get rid of the Taxman. So talking about like the well-loved games, it absolutely had a gameplay influence. Like it was just like a funny situation. Okay, question 4: cards or dice?
I think there's a lot more potential with cards. Like you can do a lot more things with cards.
Yeah, and I'll take dice, then we can have both.
Hedging your bets.
Yeah, going with cards.
But the twist will be that your cards all have dice faces printed on them, and your dice all have card suits covered on them.
Yeah.
So you can't win either way.
Yeah.
Okay. Final question. What fictional character would you invite to a game night?
Very interesting.
It'd be fun to invite like your own D&D character to a game night or something. That'd be kind of fun.
We have not had an answer like that. That's a good one.
So who is your D&D character?
Just different ones over the years. I played a lot of D&D.
Favorite? You've got to tell us who
I really haven't. I don't really have like a long-running favorite character.
Do you have like a go-to class that you like to go with?
No, kind of a bit partial to like rangers and fighter magic user kind of character, but someone that's got a bit of fighting, but something to play with the magic sort of system. Some fun ideas.
How about you, Brenna?
This is really hard because like there's so many fictional characters who I love so much.
But which one is going to be most interesting in a game, like to play with in a game?
Yeah, I might go to like I would go with Captain Bobby Draper from the Expanse series to play a war game with.
Ooh, Bobby Draper. Yeah.
Read it, but I've seen the TV series and she was my favorite character.
She's incredible. I love the book so much. She's amazing.
Yeah, I'd say Data from Star Trek, but he just like a whip man. So it's not good.
I guess you don't like winning then.
I wonder how Data would go in like an RPG. Like, would he be any good at it? Like, or would he really struggle with it?
Does he have the emotion chip yet or not?
True. All right. Well, we will wrap up. Kate, I'm going to ask if you could press buttons while I read out the scripty thing. Thank you everyone for being here. Thanks, Dan and Brenna especially. It was really lovely to have you on. And I'm sorry that my internet connection was just haywire today.
No worries. Thank you so much for having us.
Oh, it's been good. I'm going to have to rewatch this episode so I actually can fill in all the bits that I missed. So where can people best follow along with your game design journey? Which isn't really a game design journey, just your company journey, I suppose. Yeah,
well, you can follow Quillsilver at Twitter, on Twitter at by Quillsilver. We're also on Facebook and Instagram at Quillsilver Studio. And then I'm also on Twitter. It's just my name at Brenna Noonan, or on Instagram at Brenna Games.
I'm on Twitter too.
No.
Nobody follows me. There's some really good. There's a few people on there that follow me, and I'm very appreciative of those 4 or 5 people that respond.
He's at Game Art Creative. I'll plug it for you.
That's great. And as always, thank you, Kate and Alan, for joining me and for taking over today when everything was crazy for me. And thank you to all of the people who joined in the chat. It was actually probably our most lively chat that we've actually had so far. So really exciting.
Thanks everyone for watching.
It's a real roller coaster episode.
It was definitely a wild ride. So if anyone would like to propose topics or questions for a future show, or to chat more about game development or anything else, or even maybe suggest people that you'd like us to try and get on the show if we can, then join our Discord.
I'm going to call out Matthew Dunstan.
He's already on my list. He doesn't know it yet, but he's on my. I've got a note to contact him like this week about it or next week about it. So he will be hearing from me soon.
I just want to put him on the spot because it's live and now legally obligated.
See, my secret plan was I was going to try and catch up with him at CanCon last weekend, weekend before, but then he didn't end up being able to make it, so I wasn't able to chat to him and tee it all up. That's my excuse anyway. So yeah, our Discord is ltt.ltd/s/discord. So if you join that, you can follow along. You can also follow us on YouTube and Facebook. Just search for Launch Tabletop. And if you are on YouTube, then we'd really appreciate you giving us a like and a follow. It really helps us. Materialise is produced by Launch Tabletop. So if you visit launchtabletop.com, you can find out more about Launch Lab, which is our print-on-demand tabletop game platform, and sign up for a free account. And if you use the code Materialise, you can get 20% off your next order, not including shipping. And I can guarantee it works because I just did it last night, put in the code, and I got the discount. So it absolutely is a functional thing. And so, yeah, I'm Eris. I've been your host. This is Materialise, and thank you everyone for watching.
Thanks,
And
Eris.
you.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
See ya.